I'd like to thank everyone that's listening in for their time over this last 4 weeks. I hope the webinars have been informative and hopefully they've answered the questions that you have. If there are more questions or more specific topics, if everyone feels that these webinars have been useful, it is something that we'd look at doing again in another period of time. So again, I'll need some feedback from everyone. Before I go any further, I need to thank my wife because she's been incredibly patient and tolerant over the last 4 weeks. While most people have been like building Lego and doing stuff like that with the kids, I've been sort of preparing these webinars. So I need to thank her massively for letting me get this far. So today's presentation is a culmination of the 4 weeks. Today is going to be, I think, one of the more important presentations because it's going to allow us to sort of put it all together. Really, we're talking about startup and squat practices, but this also applies for people that are thinking about buying their first practice or thinking about renovating their practice or moving into sort of business ownership. So in a second, I'm going to start by introducing Rajiv. Rajiv and I met 3 years ago now. Rajiv was, I'll tell you my story. I started obviously with the squat practice, like I said at the beginning. And what happened was, in terms of timing, I was given advice by lots of different people. So I had a former practice manager who helped me with the initial process. She wasn't qualified to do the job properly. And unfortunately, what happened was she gave me some documents that are out of date. Also, they weren't accurate. So I started going down that process. Then I had to sort of turn around and get another alternative. And that's when I met Rajiv. Rajiv came on board. And that's actually when we started up the squat practice group. And he came on board and looked at all my old policies and told me the bits that I needed to improve on. The thing about CQC is that it is an unknown when you're an associate. You kind of know and you hear about it, but it doesn't really involve us and it's not that important. What Rajiv and his company are able to do is guide you through every step of the way and demystify a lot of the CQC terms. So Laith, I think you're in the room now. I think he is, yeah. I'm just going to make him a panelist as well, but I'm going to start off by introducing Rajiv. So Rajiv, over to you, please, mate.
Thanks, Media. I'm just going to present my presentation, so if you just give me a second to set this up on the screen.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, while we're doing that, again, guys, just to sort of reiterate, this only works with crowd participation.
Media, you might have to disable the screen. I can't share the screen.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
1 second. I just make you the co-host again. Should be able to. Okay, there we go. And then if you just try in 1 second now. That's it. Apologies. Yeah, so as I was saying, guys, we need crowd participation here. So feel free to ask the questions. I haven't got my sidekick, Aaron, today. He's busy taking the kids to school. So if you can sort of ask me the questions and I'll try and moderate and answer the questions in real time as well. So Rajiv, over to you.
Thanks, Media, and thanks for the introduction today. So hello, everyone. My name is Rajiv Lakani, and I'm founder of Dental Compliance Made Easier. A bit of background about the company. So we provide advice and guidance on all CQC related matters and support many practices across the UK in ensuring compliance with the key regulatory bodies, those such as CQC, NHS England, GDC. So thanks for Mehdi for inviting me to the panel. It's been great to be seeing all of the presentations earlier on in the weeks and to see all of the journeys evolve with regards to startups. And hopefully today I can provide to you all, those that are thinking about setting up a new startup, those that are thinking of buying existing dental practices, an overview of the CQC registration process. Just to give you a little bit of my thoughts, in terms of the whole process for a new startup, I understand that when you're thinking of buying a dental practice, the CQC registration process is not always at the forefront of your mind. It's quite daunting, and it's a more exciting thing, such as the dental build and the design of your surgeries, the marketing, the branding, all those things that you've seen evolve over these webinars. But I think the most difficult area for providers is actually the CQC process. So hopefully today I'll be able to spend a few minutes on explaining the key areas of how to prepare for your application, and also some of the common mistakes and learnings that I have gained over the last few years with regards to working with providers who are applying for applications. And then the final steps, your registration, right the way through to site inspection and the interview process. So I'll just put up the presentation. Just to give you a bit of background information, it's important to state that with any startup or any dental practice, you must have a CQC registration, and then without the registration, you're not able to perform any regulated activities or service patients. Looking at CQC's live data this morning, it's saying that we have over 11,000 registered dental practices in the UK, and this figure is growing all the time. So there's a lot of practices and individuals that are thinking of setting up squats, private practices, and it's really pleasing to see that this startup process is growing. All registered locations at some point will have an inspection. And currently 10% of all locations are being selected both on a random basis and also on a basis of risk. So if you're seen as a bit of a practice that has issues with regards to GDC, NHS England, you may be selected in front of those random selected practices. And all of the inspections are based on the assessment of the 5 key lines of inquiry. So your practice must be safe, it must be caring, responsive, effective, and well-led, and that is the inspection process. So that's a bit of background with regards to CQC. In terms of the application process itself, for a new startup, and I think one of the questions I get a lot is with regards to the actual provider and the type of provider. So once you've agreed on a location and you received your D1 planning, your planning consent, and you're ready to go for your build, you need to think about the type of application you're making. It's very easy to select the incorrect application type, so you need to be clear about the legal entity. And these 3 legal entities here are really your startup in terms of your application process. So you can either be an individual, a partnership, or a limited company. So when you're thinking about buying a practice, make sure that you do your research. Speak to your accountants, your advisors with regards to what type of application you want, because the last thing you really want is for this application to be rejected based on the fact that you've delivered the wrong entity. Just to give you a bit of background in regards to individual, so if you are going to register as an individual, you'll be responsible for the regulated activities. If you're going to be applying as a partnership, the partnership exists where 2 or more individuals will be responsible for the regulated activities, and this type of entity will also require you to engage with a registered manager. So you must have a registered manager as part of this legal entity. And the same with organisation. An organisation itself will be in full control of the limited company, and you will also need to have a registered manager for this. So in terms of registered manager, the registered manager can be either of the partners or either the directors, or you can also select an individual person. But just make sure that that person that you do select is obviously competent or is able to manage the regulated activities in your practice. So someone who's thinking about, again, registering a startup, the first place that I would always ask them to go to is the CQC website and the page that says register with CQC as a new provider. There's some excellent information around how you can apply, what you need to do, and also the sort of the implications of the process. There are several key areas for me that you need to complete and understand before taking this application. So if I just run through some of these key areas, one of the areas is the Cqc Dbs checks, so the disclosure and barring service checks. So there's a lot of complexities around, what type of DBS checks do we need to submit. Now, for me, it's individuals who are applying as partnerships or limited companies. You must apply for a CQC countersigned DBS check, which is done through our CQC disclosures website here, and the actual the DBS check must be valid within 12 months of you making that application. It's very easy to submit an application where you think you've already got a DBS check, and that could be a standard DBS check. That is not going to be valid for this type of application because it's a new provider. Just make sure you understand the timescales. So currently it takes anything between 2 and 8 weeks. They are quite fast with regards to receiving and sending back the DBS checks, but it is really one of the first things that you should think about when you do apply for your registration. So get your DBS check carried out. How long does it take to register in terms of the whole application process? Well, I mean, it's very important to understand that CQC must establish that the applicants will provide services that are obviously safe and well-led. In terms of the process, the CQC need to ask you a lot of information from you about your personal information, about where you're going to be providing the services at, and also what type of services you're going to be providing. So there is a lot of information that the CQC needs. So it can take anything between 6 and 10 weeks to get your application registered with the CQC. Now, obviously, with the COVID-19 situation, there are a few delays. But what I can confirm, because there's been a lot of questions around, can we submit an application at this current time? Yes, you can. They will put them in the system, but there may be a slight delay on that application process. Another key document for your application is the statement of purpose. And this is really around your kind of business, so your aims, your objectives, what sort of location services you'll be providing at, and also what entity you're going to be having. So the statement of purpose is a very key document that you need to have in place. Obviously, financial viability is something that you'll get asked about, so you need to have the financial resources to provide the services described in your statement of purpose. And you need to provide assurances from a specialist financial person, so it's like an accountant or an FCA, who must approve that you are able to, that you're viable enough to go for the registration and the resource. So, I mean, I guess in terms of my learning and experience that I've had with doing CQC registrations, there are some common mistakes that practices or providers can make. And I just want to go through some of these areas with you at the moment. So again, we touched on CQC countersigned DBS checks. So I think a common mistake providers are making is that you might have another DBS number from another previous job, but it's important to remember that a CQC countersigned DBS number is different to your normal DBS check, and that you must have it completed within 12 months of your application process. The following individuals need to have a DBS check. Those that are applying for a partnership and those that are registering as a limited company must have a countersigned DBS check. So please remember that when you do the process. In terms of entity, so again, please make sure that you research the type of application you're going to be making. Make sure that the process that you understand, that you are an individual, a partnership, or a limited company. That's quite important. And also, obviously, the statement of purpose again, which I've relayed again further. It's a very important document for your application. So make sure that document is filled in and it is completed for your application. I mean, a lot of providers will tell you that work with inaccurate information. So things like a spelling mistake on your surname, a DBS number that is incorrect, and this doesn't relate to your actual countersigned DBS. All these common errors and inaccuracies can delay your application. So please review your application before you submit it. It's a really important aspect of your process. So as well as your documents, as well as your common mistakes, there are also key supporting documents that you have to submit with regards to the whole process itself. And these are your management policies and procedures. You must prepare the supporting documents. It's extremely important that the protocols and procedures that you prepare are relevant to your service. It's very easy to upload a generic policy template. Make sure that all of the templates that you upload are specific to you, that you understand those policies, because at your interview process, you will be asked about questions around the policies that you've implemented and uploaded. Just some of the key ones that you have, again, statement of purpose. The management policies and procedures are more to do with your quality assurance. You've got your safeguarding policies, which are key to your interview process. And also planning permission. Now, planning permission I've put optional because you don't need to submit that at the start of your application. As a squat practice, you can present that to the CQC at your site visit. So it is an optional document. And that's the same with the building regulation document. You won't always have that document at the start of your application. So it is optional, but you will need to present all of these documents at your interview process with CQC before you can get signed off. A registered manager is also a very important aspect of your supporting documents. So make sure that you notify the CQC about who this person is, and make sure that you have also had a good idea about this particular person in terms of their role, their skills, their expertise, because your application could depend on this particular person's results with regards to the interview. And then the final aspect of the documents is the governance. So the governance area is obviously important. You must provide information about how your management of your organization is structured and organized. And this is to ensure that you've got strong governance procedures in place. And again, a very key area of your interview will be going through your governance documents. So, understanding the CQC regulations can be quite overwhelming for a new provider, especially for someone that's never really got involved with the CQC process. So actually, what I've done here is given you the two key regulations that I think you need to understand. There are many other regulations that you can review on the CQC Providers Guidance websites. But if you look at the ones that I put on, Regulation 13 is around safeguarding service users from abuse and improper treatment, and Regulation 17, which is good governance. Now, these two areas are quite focused on your interview process, so it's really important that you review those. Just touching on the good governance area, for me personally, good governance and being a well-led practice has three main ingredients. And I think touching on the presentations from me and Anna last week, a couple of weeks ago, the three areas that I think are important is number one, you should have an empowered practice manager, stroke registered manager, someone that manages the day-to-day activities in your practice, motivates your staff, and that comes across quite well in your interview process. If you've got a strong registered manager or a strong practice manager, that's quite important. The second thing is clinical leadership. Now, usually this comes from the top, and I think a principal who sets out the governance and the leadership in your practice, which is then filtered down to the team, is quite an important area of your governance. And the final area that I think is a key component of the well-led is staff retention. So having a stable team and trying to keep that same team happy as long as possible is a key component. So it always shows a happy ship and patients that feel more reassured about your practice. So these are all of the three key components of a well-led practice. So going back to the actual application process itself, so once you have understood the type of application you're making, you've obtained your CQC countersigned DBS check, you've developed your protocols and your procedures, and you've had an understanding of the key regulations, you can start your application. And obviously this is the application page from the CQC website, and you simply start your application. And also, all new providers must sign up to the CQC portal. Once you've signed up as a new provider, CQC will provide you with details of your username and your password so you can commence your application process. With regards to the application itself, it is broken down into 8 key areas. As you can see, there's quite a lot of information there for you to engage with. I won't be going through every single part of it, but you can see that the level of information they wish to see is about you as an individual, about your location, about your registered manager, and also the documents that we've discussed. So there's a lot of information input that you need to have into this application. Just looking at kind of timescales as in terms of how long it could take a potential provider to complete the online application. I would say if you're doing it properly, between 7 and 8 hours is kind of the timescales, I would say, that you should spend on this sort of application process. Make sure you review each and every aspect of your documents and your answers before you submit the application, because it's very important that there's no errors, inaccuracies in your information. And then obviously the declaration, it needs to be done by each and every person of that partnership or limited company, or if you're an individual, you need to sign the declaration and submit it. So once the application is submitted to the CQC, there are 3 stages of the application process. The first one is the validation process, and that validation process, the CQC will need to check that the main application has been completed, and also that all of the information is accurate. The second stage is the assessment process. So once validated, your application will then be assigned to your registration inspector for assessment, and they will usually get in touch with the provider with the date of interview and site visit. The interview itself, your assigned inspector will normally provide you with 2 weeks' notice for your interview, and those that are applying as a squat practice will almost be guaranteed to have an interview at the practice itself, because obviously they want to see the actual location, the build, and also make sure that the practice is safe to provide regulated activities. So once you've got your assigned interview date, you will need to obviously comply with CQC's information. They will be providing you with a checklist of information that you need, so you won't be left in the dark. There will be a lot of information that they will want to see on the day of inspection. So really, I mean, in terms of my advice, the interview process can be daunting. But as I've alluded to in the presentation, understand your policies and procedures. Make sure that you understand some of the key regulations and that you've got a good idea about your staff recruitment process. And actually be confident. It's your opportunity to shine. This is your practice, your new location. If you feel you need any assistance with regards to the process itself, there's a lot of support functions in place. So don't be afraid to ask. So for a squat practice, in terms of next steps and site inspection, you need to just make sure that you're confident that your practice is safe. Work with your dental bills. Work with your service engineers to make sure all the timescales are relayed to CQC. Get your policies and procedures developed and have a system for compliance. Whether you do this yourself or you outsource this particular piece of work, make sure that you understand your own protocols. Get your key risk assessments booked in quite early. I would always say that the 2 key risk assessments that you should do in preparation for your site visit is a fire risk assessment and a Legionella. So make sure that that you receive the reports from your provider and actually act on those. So if your provider has put some actions in place for your inspection, make sure that you respond to those actions. And the inspector will also want to see sight of your equipment, so service and maintenance records. Make sure that your facility is DDA compliant. So again, work with your dental bills. I mean, I've certainly approached Laith on a few occasions with regards to disability, in terms of wheelchair access, width of doors. Make sure that you cooperate with your key people and to get this compliant. So again, the CQC will give you a list of information, and you will have some preparation time. So do as much as possible, and it's always good to inform the CQC inspector of an expected time on your opening as well, and that will push them to give you a notice of decision quite soon. And this is what every practice wants to see, really, is the notice of decision. And this is the certificate that you need to open your practice. So all that hard work you've done, the preparation, the investment that you've made, this is the actual document that will allow you to service patients, to open up and see to treat regulated activities in your practice. So the notice of decision is based on how well prepared you are. It's based on your availability of the interview date, and also how quickly you respond to the requests from CQC and information around your application. So if you're well prepared, your service is ready, and that there are no delays, the CQC should send you the notice of decision, which allows you to operate the regulated activities. So the whole process from start to finish can take anything between 6 and 10 weeks. So that's just something important to bear in mind. So really, a very quick whistle stop on the application process itself. It can be a daunting process for any new provider. I hope that I've been able to provide you with an overview of the application process and the key elements of the registration area. Any new providers looking to set up a squat practice and need further guidance, any advice around the process itself, feel free to ask for support, whether that's directly through CQC, whether that's through an external advisor. I mean, Meady's created an excellent platform on Facebook, the Startup for Dentists group, and I think that's an excellent platform for all dentists to ask questions. And feel free. I've been sort of extremely grateful for to be involved in that particular group, and I've also been involved with a lot of new startups in that group. Please feel free to ask any questions, and I'll do my best to give you my thoughts on the application process and any aspect of compliance, because obviously currently with the sort of COVID-19 situation and the sort of bombshell that everyone's been hit with regards to the return to work, if there's any questions that you have outside of this presentation, then please get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. That was awesome. I wish I had met you before I started. So for anyone that is looking to start, I'm sure they probably feel the same. Laith, I'm sure is going to join us in a second, or he's there, but he's just going to put his, there we go. Hey Laith, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, not bad. Sorry, we're running a bit late today.
No dramas. I think we're all in the same boat, aren't we? But so I was just finishing off, just thanking Rajiv. That was excellent, Rajiv. That's literally answered a lot of questions for a lot of people. We'll save the CQC questions for the end, and we'll ask the questions together, because some of them do tie in with planning and also the build side of things. So Laith, I'll just give you a quick introduction. I'm sure most of you know Laith already. Laith is well known as obviously a dentist, but also as somebody who has probably been involved in more practice builds than anybody else in the industry, I would have thought. So I'm really looking forward to this one, Laith, because I think, without sort of being too generalist, a lot of people in the industry produce stylized standard designs. What I've seen from Laith's work is it's something different, and really I think this is how you build a practice that you've always dreamed of. So Laith, over to you, buddy.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks for inviting me down. Look, the way I'm going to do this presentation is it's going to be very light on text and very heavy on pictures, because I think that's sometimes the best way in showing you some of our mistakes, some of the inspirations we've done. So I really want this to be a really sort of uplifting, promising, optimistic presentation. COVID-19 has obviously been a disaster for everyone, but actually it's almost a reset button for a lot of us, and we can sort of step back and try to reflect on what our practice direction will be. And I've actually had more contact than I've ever had, and that's because people are stepping back from their business and actually looking at their business from the outside. And so I think that's a good place to start. So I'll go through some pictures, and I'll just talk to you about my ideas and in how we can actually make a practice a bit different to the classical practice you might have seen. That's myself and my brother in my own practice. Okay, so I'm going to talk about myself a little bit. So introduction, who I am, how I became a builder. I always find it quite interesting people still call me a builder, because obviously I'm a dentist. Let me move that away, sorry. My first design job trial, so how I got into it, I'll go into that briefly. My own practice design, because I think that's quite useful for people to see, because one thing that people always ask me is, how did you design your own practice? And I think that's because they probably want to see what my own style is, what my preference is, and what the design process actually follows. So first of all, I'm a dentist, not a builder. So I qualified in 2010 in Bristol. Yeah, I know a lot of people say I look a lot older, but I'm only 33 years old. I'm 34 in October. So I'm free my own practice, all in London. I do very limited dentistry. But now in the COVID process, I've actually decided to stop clinical dentistry, okay, completely. And that's for multiple reasons, which I'm going to go into in a second. So a lot of people ask me why. Why did I start doing dental build? The reason is I actually had very ill previous health. So I've got a chronic condition, not contagious, don't worry, but it's a disease which long-term may affect my dentistry. So I had to think of a different pathway. Okay, so I thought of different ways. And being a dentist, there isn't a lot of skill set we can do. Okay, well, that's what I thought. And so during this period of health, I've been building and doing design work in terms of property development, etc. And that made me carry out a job which my father asked me to do with my builders. So who's in the actual company? The company is actually led by myself and two other main builders. Now, I actually gave them a massive shareholding in the company because I think that means that they can actually care about the business. So they're very hardworking, 7 days a week, never complain, get things done. And those are my team. So this is actually a job in Love Teeth, which has been an amazing job to do. So Love Teeth are owned by Kunal Patel and Lucy Patel, and they've been an absolute pleasure to work with. The guys have really enjoyed being there. So I'm going to go into this topic. It's towards the end because I was collecting pictures right at the end. And this is a project that's still going on. I'll get into that in a second. So what's my first design job? So my first design job is actually for my dad. So again, it started with a process. I told my dad, look, I'll do it for you. I'm going to design it. I'm not going to build it. We had different builders doing it at this stage. And my dad's practice is a horrible practice in a Essex area, purely NHS, first floor, absolutely horrible. Okay, so you can see these are the stairs going into the reception. The surgeries were just awful. Okay, I mean, CQC compliance would have been very difficult, and I'll show you why in a second. Nice old-fashioned sterilizers in the actual surgery. Reception through the surgery, so you can actually see the receptionist. If a patient's lying down, patient can see receptionist, reception can see patient, which is not a great place to work at all. This is the lovely waiting area. So my dad thought he was doing a great job when he would change the upholstery every 2-3 years when the leathers get ruined. And every now and then he would varnish and paint it. So this is typically a practice in the 1970s. And believe it or not, there's still practice that look like this. Okay, there's still practice that look like this, but it's a massive change in the way we all think. We're all starting to think about how to make a practice look a bit more bespoke, how to make a practice look a bit more almost in the hotel business. Okay, people do go really far out. You don't need to, and I'll go into that in a second. You need to stick to your market. So this is the same business, okay, same practice. So this is what we designed to make it much brighter, much more modern. Again, NHS, keeping the funds low, okay? We didn't go too far. We didn't spend a huge amount. The floors were just simple carving, simple paint jobs, not going too far at all. You can see nothing fancy. Reception desk, we designed, that's the only part of the whole practice that was a little bit costly, but not too bad. Laminate, didn't even use Corian. The top work surface is Corian. We just tried to make it really fresh. Surgeries, we opened up the surgeries, just made loads of light in there, contrasting colors, dark floors, white cabinets, classical, nothing special. This is my day-to-day work. So these are honestly a practice that we did, and they won't forgive me, they won't mind me saying this, but it was a really difficult job to do because it just was in such a bad way. It was a practice they inherited, young guys, lovely guys, again, really old-fashioned. So they wanted to completely transform it into making it a much more modern practice because the way patients view a clinic now is different to how they viewed a clinic 10, 15, 20 years ago. This is behind reception. You can see storage is very poor. It was not a practice that you would want to be in. This is what we did after. So what we did is we made a Corian desk. We used some very sort of natural colors, mixed concrete with dark colors, but you can see it doesn't look too dark. We introduced light into the practice. So we increased the size of the windows at the front. We put some really contrasting colors. Venetian plaster in the background, that's a dark color you see there. So we tend to use a lot of Venetian plaster in the right environment. Okay, so Venetian plaster is a waxed polish. So literally you can wipe it down. So instead of painting the wall, because every 5 or 10 years, you're going to get a horrible painted wall. We tend to put Venetian plaster, which is much more easy to maintain. But Venetian plaster is costly. So just showing you some bespoke cabinetry. So this is some cabinetry which we designed to match with the actual units of the desk. You can see, again, We've just gone for something really quite minimal and quite simple in the way it looks, but it makes such a big effect. Yeah, such a big effect. I tend to say to a lot of our clients that they shouldn't worry in terms of the cost. Sometimes they tend to spend too much money on the sofas, for example, but sofas and soft furnishings are one bit of furniture you're going to change. The money that you should put into long-term furniture, yeah, if you put in a decent investment into your reception desk, a decent investment into your cabinetry, these are the ones that you don't need to change 15, 20 years. Honestly, the Corian surfaces are so sturdy. They're so good, especially in high traffic areas like a dental surgery. So this is the other angle. You can see we use a lot of lighting, okay, just to bring the effects of the openness of the practice. But again, you can see nothing too complicated. So this is our day-to-day job. This is going downstairs. We tend to use Venetian plaster on staircases. The reason we use staircases is it's the highest traffic area. People, when they walk down the stairs, will always touch the walls. It will happen. So the effect of Venetian plaster tends to reduce that. The negative of Venetian plaster is that if you have a sharp angle and edges, you need to think of ways of protecting it. Otherwise, it will chip. It's a plaster, okay? So you need to be very careful in where you use it. But if you use it, you're going to have to consider some sort of beading. So why do people contact us? New practice purchase, relocation, squat practice, and general refurb. So this is actually a new purchase practice. So this was actually myself and my brother. So this was in 2015 or 16, I can't remember exactly. So this clinic is based in Essex. It's a beautiful building, but it was very old and tired. So the outside was stunning. We always tend to recommend to stick the refurbishment in character, okay? So you will not take a building like this and make it spaceship-like inside. You don't want to make it too modern. You don't make it Dubai style. You want to keep the character of the practice as much as you can. So in the actual room I'm in now is the same room that you see in this picture. So this room is huge. This room is about 8 meters long by 5 meters or 6 meters wide. And it used to be used as an osteopath. And we're very lucky. We've got really high ceilings, really good ventilation, a beautiful garden. The gentleman you see in there is actually an assistant who's been a lab technician. He still lives in this building. He's been working here since he was about 25 years old. And he still walks around the building, helps out, just sort of keeping an eye on everything. He's now 91 years old, okay? And he's still here just helping out and just being around. This is what the practice looks like now. So this is my surgery. So I designed it because of the space where the cabinetry combines and joins onto the desk. You can see the desk at the back. You can see the ceiling light. Because I've got the height, I put a Dentec light, which is a beautiful LED piece, really good for surgical procedures. We put a coffee machine in the non-surgical area. Not going to happen in COVID now, but before COVID, we used to have a coffee area where we can have some staff, family members sitting down and relaxing. We've got a nice sort of balcony area here. You can see the balcony goes all the way across, and that overlooks a beautiful landscape garden where family, friends can sort of sit and wait outside. We let them access the garden if they need to. So we're very, very lucky in this premises. But you can see that actually we didn't do anything too spectacular. We kept it simple, okay? Because you don't need to do anything in here. You let the building do the work. That's during spring. You can see the beautiful flowers in the garden. This is the other surgery. This is my specialist surgery. Again, so a lot of people ask me in terms of, do I need to change my cabinetry? Not always. So this cabinetry, I literally took from this room, repositioned it, reused all the cabinets, and just changed the worktop. And for me, at a fraction of the cost of what new cabinetry would normally cost you, I was able to make it look like a brand new surgery just by reusing cabinetry in my own room, taking the worktops off and just investing in the worktop and nothing else. So squat practices. This is, I'm going to briefly touch on this. This is Luke, who obviously everyone knows very well. So Luke took over a unit in Royal Wharf. Squat practices are really exciting, really, really great places to do. We've discussed this already, but the benefit of a squat practice is that you can really put your footprint on it. You can design it exactly how you want. You can have your ethos in it. You can put your footprint and your character into it and your branding. And it's almost very daunting in the beginning because of the fact that there's a long journey to go, okay? But the brave really do get rewarded in squat practice if it's a good location. You can see the outside, and this is what it looked like after. So again, we use a different type of plaster here, different type of flooring. We use a super matte sort of grey cabinetry, ceiling, TV ceiling mounted, and we just try to make things look really different. Okay, no surgery should look the same, in my opinion. Okay, unless you're trying to stick to a certain budget. So you can see he doesn't have the traditional water dispensers. He's got filtered water, glassware, etc. He's even got a TV in his bathroom. So his TV, he can play sort of adverts, etc. So whilst he's on the loo, he can do that. And that's his waiting room. So this is LED strips which are recessed into the ceiling. Completely different. You can have any design. This is what's great about these lights. Sometimes spotlights can make a practice look very samey. Whilst using LED recessed strips, you can have completely different designs. Zigzags on the walls. I'll show you that later with Kunal Patel's practice in Love Teeth Dental. I'll show you some other designs that you can really sort of take effect. This is renders. So the benefit of renders is that you can really avoid hindsight. I really recommend that you take part in a company that provides renders. Okay, renders for me are an absolutely essential part of practice design. Without use of renders, I think that there can be some mistakes, and there can be sort of, I wish I did that, which is done different, but very time consuming, and can be costly, but I think it's worth it in the end. My company, we don't tend to charge for renders. We do it as part of the build. But if you don't get ahead of the build, then you get charged for renders. So you just have to be careful there and make sure you get a decent company to look at the renders. This is the downstairs renders we're showing roughly, and that's a potential training facility which we're designing at the moment. Plans, architects. A lot of people ask me when to use architects. Not always necessary, okay? Architect plans are not always necessary. So these are basic floor plans. I would say only use an architect when you're doing a massive development. For example, a planning application, but you have to be careful when to use the architect. So during planning, for example, for a squat practice, you want to keep it as basic as possible. Do not spend money. Plans are not important, internal plans, or to get that right. Planning permission is only important to get change of use or to apply for D1. Do not spend money at this time. Only spend money and get this level of detail. You can see we've got socket plans, we've got renders, we've got position of radiators, everything, wire switches, everything planned after you decide to go ahead with the build, okay? And that's when the architect becomes very useful. So this is a practice in Chesington, just showing you how the process works. So what we do is we strip everything down. When I say strip down, I mean really strip down to brick, nothing else. We do not like to do practices where it's patching up. Patching up for me means it's going to be disasters. If you decide to do a refurbishment practice, refurb it properly. Makeovers can be done by a local builder. Fitting out like this is better to go to a specialist, okay? The charges shouldn't be very different. If it is, you should ask questions, but the charges shouldn't be too different from a local builder, but it just have the expertise and peace of mind. So what we do is we then produce a 3D model of the practice, and from the 3D model, I can then get involved with interior design, and we can do this, okay? So renders can then start to go in. Everything in this practice would exist. Furniture would exist, flooring would exist, wall colors would exist. Everything in here exists, okay? And we can then start to really get accurate costs based on their fit out finishes, okay? This is the bathroom. So this is a DDA compliant toilet. So Rajiv was actually talking about DDA compliant toilets. The problem with compliant toilets is they tend to look horrendous, okay? The sinks are always really small, the toilets are really high, etc. So what we tend to do is we tend to make things a little bit more bespoke. So that's a Korean sink. You can see normal height, then drops down. What that means is that you're compliant, but without it looking like a disabled toilet. You want it to be sort of higher end bespoke. If you look at hotels, you would notice the same thing. You don't notice a very low sink. You will notice they've done some very small, clever techniques to make it compliant without being over the top. Surgeries. So again, surgery design, we try to make things look very different, and that can be very simple, okay? That can be just a simple wall, a blue wall, or it can be a bit of glass. You can see in the cabinets there, between the two cabinets, like a splash black. We've used glass to just create a slight reflection in there. Using any sort of garden space, doing some landscaping really helps. This is Westbourne Grove, so lovely area. This is by Sonia. So Sonia, everyone knows very well. And this is how it looked like from the outside. You can see this and this does not match. So what do? We use someone like Shaz at Digimax to help design the brand. We strip out. We do new shop fronts to make it more fitting of the area. And again, completely change the way it looks, okay? Simple designs, okay, that's not so simple, but here, simple design to make things look more fitting of the area. This is Platinum Dental, not a simple design. Platinum Dental, this is actually now a very good friend of mine, Rishi. So we try to use the wood frames. We try to keep costs down by using Howden's cabinets. We get furniture from May.com. We use all the cabinetry to make it so it's very in sync with the area. So it should be, this is supposed to be nature, okay? So we're trying to make it more natural. We use branding in terms of wallpapers. You can see that wallpaper in the background, blue, says Platinum Dental. You can't tell it says Platinum Dental, it looks artistic, but it's got some very small details just to get your branding in there. Small children's room. So you can see we've covered a children's room in glass, artificial glass. Artificial glass is cheap. Just glue it into the wall. Wallpaper, very simple, but it just makes something a bit different and something that's Instagrammable. So people tend to take Instagram, they post it, they hold signs saying Heronsgate Dental, for example. It just makes that extra interest in there. If you haven't got a space, build up. Think about building up. So this is now going into the 4th floor, okay? And that makes a huge difference to your business. It's not always about relocation, adding a practice. Can you increase the actual income of your practice by increasing space? If you haven't got space, go up. Think about going up. So this is Love Teeth Dental. Okay, so Love Teeth Dental, like I said, Kunar. So Kunar's been very hands-on. Okay, so he knows exactly what he likes. And every time I go there, I get a new surprise, and I'll show you in a second. So these are the renders. Again, we make things very different. We don't want any practice to look the same. We use them with, this is not finished, okay? So you can see this is what we're trying to create at the moment. So we have to make everything bespoke. You can see in between here where the holes have been drilled, those are going to be LED panels, which will give the appearance of that, okay? So it's being very clever, but items like this, you need to keep an eye on your budget. Your budget can go up quite easily. As a rough guide, refurbishments and squat practices would cost you about £90 a square foot. And if you're going really high end, you can go up to about £135 a square foot, okay? Keep that in mind. You can go higher, you can go a bit lower, okay? But as a ballpark figure, that's what you're talking about. So this is Kunar's practice. Again, we don't want to make another practice look the same again. So what we do, we put a square around it, use 2 different types of outro floor. I put some LED recessed strips around that chair. We use some LED strips like a zigzag along the ceiling and wall. That's my child in the seat that I was getting quite excited about taking pictures and using it as my promotion at some point. So this isn't finished yet. This is Kunar. So this is unbelievable. Okay, so as you walk through his reception, you walk to a spectacular hallway. I can't even, that doesn't give it justice because it hasn't been finished yet. But as you walk in, the ceiling now, it goes up maybe 9 meters and it's curved and goes straight up. And we've got LED lights which go all the way down. That's going to be mirrored along the middle with his logos in there. This will be all now varnished to a black color. And he's got glass sort of banisters going all the way side, okay? And that would look just absolutely amazing. So it's just a whirlwind tour because I know we've got very limited time about what you can do. Everything's possible, but the one thing I would say is find your budget you're comfortable with, stick to your budget, and do not make changes. If you make changes, that's the most costly effect that we'll have, okay? We've got a big opportunity now, in my opinion, where we want to really attract patients, and you need to make these areas look as least clinical as possible while still keeping a clinical feel. Yeah, so that sounds quite complicated. but it's possible. And a lot of times you don't need someone like me necessarily. You can do it alone if you want to do DIY way. But if you want any advice, just give me a call or give me a message.
Wow, dude. I feel like I should give you a round of applause, man.
I'm sorry, there's so much to talk about. I've got a million pictures to go through. I had to choose a few in a very short time.
Dude, really, really awesome. Will you unshare your screen so we can get everyone on the...
Yeah.
And then we can have a bit of a chat. So we've got about half an hour to 40 minutes for questions now. We've had quite a few questions coming in. I'm just going to start by saying, Laith, thank you for that. That was really inspiring, man. How busy are you? First question.
Very busy, yeah. So I would say we're probably fully booked 4 or 5 months ahead in advance at any one time.
That's crazy, man. Well, it's testament to you. I mean, first of all, you've obviously told us a bit of your story and, you know, the reasons, your why you started it. Do you ever see a day where, I mean, I know you said you've stopped clinical dentistry. Do you ever see a day where you'll completely get out of dentistry and it will just be the build side?
Probably not, unless health determines that, but probably not. I do enjoy the interaction with patients. I enjoy being in a work environment with all the nurses and the dentists. So I don't want to lose touch of that. I don't want to become a builder. That's not my aim. So that's the reason why I'm really interested in the design and patient flow and giving some different ideas. So when clients come to me, I really want to just make sure that we give them something different that no other clinic's got. And so there's always ways of thinking about it. And a lot of time, to be fair, clients give me just something and we can work with it. You know, we go for something very niche in each practice. Yeah. So the answer in short is no. Okay, but I do enjoy having both parts into my life.
The reason I ask is you're fortunate because you've kind of got 2 careers. Many of us dentists, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, you know, we're dentists and that's all we know. And you know, we moan about the bad things in dentistry, but comparing the 2 side by side, would you say there are benefits and negatives of both? I mean, what's your overall view?
Yes. Look, building is very stressful. Okay. I don't think I've seen any building job go completely smoothly. It doesn't happen. Okay. So, especially when you're doing bespoke items, you're doing something really, if you're just doing plasterboard, painting, simple flooring, simple and straightforward. So when you're doing something more complicated, bespoke, especially with being a dentist like yourself and myself, yeah, we are going to pick out every single detail. And a lot of times I'll pick out details which would really stress me out. Yeah. But there's always a solution to them. And deadlines. Yeah. You're always facing deadlines. There isn't a time you're not facing deadlines.
That's the
with dentistry, I feel like I can switch off. Okay. So I can go to work and I can more or less switch off unless something really disastrous is happening. With building, there isn't a switching off point. So, and I think that's the case with a lot of careers. Okay. I've talked to my bankers friends and that's the reason why, I don't know if you remember, I was inviting people into my practice and I was talking to people who were stressed and I was trying to give a different side to it because, yes, dentistry is very stressful, but we're very fortunate. I think we're very fortunate.
No, 100%. Thanks for that. I mean, we're going to touch on that a little bit later, but just bringing Rajiv back into this. One of the reasons I've asked you guys to come on board is that when you start a squat practice or not even just a squat, when you take over a business, the first thing we all worry about is cost and spending money. And I think it's valid to do that. But at the same time, what I've realized is you get the biggest stress when you get the wrong people in and you don't spend enough. So one of the things I'd just like to share with the group is that you need a good team of people around you. You know, you need someone like a Rajiv, because my example was I probably lost about a month's worth of income trying to get somebody in on the cheap to help me start my CQC process. If I'd spoken to Rajiv at the beginning, I'd have been flying. Do you see what I mean? So, you know, it's not only Rajiv. I'm sure there's others like him, but, you know, we've had Rajiv in the group and same with you, Laith. You know, I went cheap on my first build and I'm so gutted, man. If I'd known you then, I'd be in a different place now. But, you know, I made it work. You know, I'm not going to lie, you know, I made it work. But, you know, get good people around you early on. And that's why the group's there, really, to sort of help empower people. Just a couple of questions now, Rajiv. I have to say, I'm slightly biased and the rest of the people will hate me for this, but I've really enjoyed this webinar. I think the feedback that, that we're getting from the group is that this is really, it's putting meat on the bones. People can see it come into place. So yeah, I mean, I have to be honest, I think it's been fantastic. And just a couple of questions. Rajiv, the main one is the interview. How do you actually prepare for that registered manager interview?
Well, I think, hopefully a lot of it was in the presentation itself. A lot of it is around kind of being confident. And I think a lot of it is, just to mention the word regulations and CQC can just put anyone off. So it's making sure, like you said, that you tap into your resources. And if you don't think you know a company or a resource, I mean, CQC, although many people try to avoid the CQC and talk to CQC, they are quite helpful. They will be able to sort of break down the areas of the interview process. But I think it all comes down to yourself, really. Just be confident in the process. Yeah. Make sure that you prepared in terms of, if you're an associate and you're coming, looking at becoming a provider, it's a massive jump. As you know, Midi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just making sure that you understand your protocols, your procedures, and have that sort of inkling around the regulation process with you. And then tap into the resources. And we've helped so many practices and potential managers become registered managers. So it's not always about if you're a partner or you're a director, and you don't want to become the registered manager, because I see a question here about, can you...
That was my next question, actually. You beat me to it, yeah. So
so you don't, it's not necessarily, I mean, if you're a director of a company, you can take the role on yourself. Just make sure that if you are appointing a role to an individual or an external person, just make sure that they are, that you feel that you understand what their skills, their expertise are. And because, the last thing you want to do is to appoint someone who's not confident in the role. And that's very important. So it's making sure that the training element of it is quite crucial as well.
And that leads me on to one final question on this, actually. You just said it there. So the director could be the registered manager, but if you get somebody else to do it, how easy is it to change if your manager leaves suddenly?
Yeah, I mean, there's a process to notify the CQC, and that's one of the most important things. Is that it really is that if you are a director or a company or a partnership, and your registered manager leaves, you have to notify the CQC of the change, and it's just basically a transfer of notification. Really. So if you've got a person,
how long would that say?
It's not long. It's not a whole new process. I mean, it's just the registered manager application. So you'd have to appoint someone. They'd have to go through a completion of a document and then have an interview process after that. So again, it could be within 6 weeks of the application being made.
Okay, cool. Laith, some questions for you now, mate. They're starting to fire in, so I'll try and get through. How much time do you take from acquiring a property to finish all the refurbishments for a squat practice? Just a rough, obviously that's not one answer, but a rough answer.
I would say average would be about 12 weeks.
From start to finish?
Yeah, average, yeah. It depends, because a lot of times when we say squat practice, sometimes it'll be like loops, which I showed you, which is complete empty. And sometimes people will take a squat practice, which involves stripping and completely gutting it, and that's completely different. Yeah. Okay, so if it's that type of practice, it's going to be about 16 weeks. If it's a residential building, it's converting into a practice, about 16 weeks. If it's an empty squat, brand new building, no shop front, about 12 weeks.
Nice. Okay. Another question here from Ali. You quoted obviously between 90 to 135 pounds square meter. Is that for the raw build, or is it for complete finish, including paint, everything?
Square foot, not square meter. Big difference in price from square foot to square foot.
Sorry, yeah.
People. But that would include everything apart from your equipment and fixtures. Okay, so that would be always. So when I say 135, I mean even Venetian plaster and special effect walls and special effect ceilings, like one of the pictures I showed you, it's got two-tone ceilings with LED strips around it. So I'm talking about going all out, right? Which is not, you would not do an all-out practice in barking, for example, at my dad's practice, before. You wouldn't do that, okay? It includes everything apart from cabinetry, chairs, plant, okay, things like that. But in terms of your alarms and everything, it should all be included.
Or your first fix, second fix,
everything. Yeah, flooring, lights, painting, doors, all your finishes. So you're ready to move in, but you need to put in your equipment.
Cool. All right, I'm just going to move on. We're getting quite a few more questions. Over to you, Rajiv. Legal status options. I think you mentioned it briefly, but Laith has asked individual partnership or organization. Is this the updated version? If so, would the old limited what would be the organisation for an old limited company? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I think I read the question in terms of legal entities. So the three legal entities that you get asked for at the start of the application is, are you an individual sole trader? Are you a partnership or your organisation? And then the limited company will fall under the organisation element of it, really. So you are applying as a limited company, and you have directors that are going to be so it'll be the actual organisation that will be in control of the registration, not the actual individuals itself. So they are the provider, really. So when you apply for your application, you have a provider, which is the organisation name, and then you can have a trading name. So it can be, for example, Rajiv Limited as your provider, and your trading name can be Rajiv Dental Practice. So it's the organisation, that is the provider, really.
Okay, that makes sense. And a question to both of you, so you can answer in turn, from Nikhil. There's currently a right to convert premises into medical due to COVID. I know this applies until the end of the year. Does this include dental practices? And therefore, would you be able to apply for D1 usage at a later stage? So does that make sense? So basically, apparently there's permission to convert now till the end of the year. Does it include dental practices?
Convert? Didn't understand that. Say that again.
I'll read it again. It says, there is a current right to convert premises into medical due to COVID. I know this applies until the end of the year. Does this include dental practices? And hence, would I be able to apply for D1 use of use at the later stage by the end of the year? So I think they're trying to see if they can change.
I'll be honest, I've not heard of that at all.
No.
So, but medical and dental are the same classification. It's both D1. So unless they're going to specify D1 medical use only, but I've not heard that.
It would be unusual, wouldn't it? I haven't heard it either. So maybe, Nikhil, if you contact Laith directly. And Rajiv, have you heard anything about that, Rajiv?
I haven't, no. Sorry, I'm not...
No. I've not heard anything about that. So we'll move on from that question. A couple more sort of generic ones. What's the best option for reception flooring?
The best option for reception flooring would be Candine, without a doubt. Okay, so Candine is a luxury vinyl tile. Okay, so a lot of people get put off when I say luxury vinyl tile. Okay, it's not a vinyl. It's not a roll that you use in your kitchen or your bathroom. It looks and feels like wooden floor. The benefit of luxury vinyl tile is it lays down in planks, so that you have a problem, you can't even lift that plank and replace that plank. A lot of them come with commercial guarantees, so a lot of them will be like a 15-year commercial guarantee. You should use someone who's been verified and approved Candine. Some familiar makes that people might be familiar with are Amtico. So Amtico and Candine are the same thing, just a different brand. But we find that Candine actually is a very cost-effective way. Other materials you can use would be Quick Step. Okay, so Quick Step is a type of laminate that sort of clicks together. It's quite a quick way of doing it. You can obviously use something a bit more expensive if you wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe resin floors, and you can also use a micro floor. But Candine is definitely our place to go to. Would you go the groove and click, or would you go and lay it and stick it down? We prefer sticking down. Yeah. Because if you have any problems, one plank comes up, one plank goes down. Sure. I'm getting loads of patients literally walking past the window. I'm in the reception. I've had about 4 deliveries, and I'm trying to style it out while I'm doing this webinar. So sorry, guys, if you see me waving at random people. I've got questions coming in on both sides, both in the chat box as well. So Laith and Rajiv, if you see any of the questions you want to answer, just feel free to go for it. But I'm just finish off the last few questions in the actual question and answer section. Samantha's asked, as a principal dentist, I'm also planning on being the registered manager. What documentation do the CQC require if I am to do this? So I think that's a pretty straightforward one, isn't it, Laith? Sorry. Yeah. I mean, obviously, applying as a registered manager, you need to have a separate application process. So you've got a main application for the provider itself, and then there's registered manager application. Yeah. So there are questions about yourself, your experience, your skill set, your qualifications, that sort of thing. And also, as part of the registered manager process, you obviously need to prepare your documentation, just be in line with all the key regulations. So it is a separate application process. But it's not a very difficult process to complete.
it's just making sure that when you do have the interview date or your registered manager interview, that you're just sort of ready and prepared for the questions really. So I'm happy to. I'm sure that we can share the presentation again. And,
so the presentation
is on there. So
perfect. Anyone that needs it, we can make access to that.
Yep.
And I'll just sort of help answer that question as well, because that for me was one of the most daunting bits of the whole build, or the whole renovation project, the interview. Again, the questions, because you think I'm not qualified, but you really are. By being an associate for many years, you'll have answered some of the questions as well, and you'll know some of them. So it isn't as daunting or as complicated as it seems. And also, those of us that have sat like vivas and exams in uni, it's nothing like that. When they come for the interview, they're not there to basically fail you. Well, some of them probably are. But in the main, the key thing they're looking for is to see that you're safe and to see that you're well led. And they're the two key things that I got from it. As long as you're safe and you as a business owner are well led, then you're perfectly capable to be the manager. And I'd actually urge most business owners to be the registered manager, in my opinion. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I really agree with that. Yeah, I think when you're starting up as a new provider, I think if you are the registered manager yourself, so if you're the director or the main partner, it shows a really good start in your application process that you are taking lead, and you will kind of relay that to your team really. So I mean, you're right, maybe the CQC, they're not there to catch you out. Yeah. They want to, they don't want any more work out of this application, than you. They want to get it processed very quickly. I can assure you of that. But obviously, they need to make sure that they meet the regulations. They don't just select a person that is not competent to that role. So I think what you said was totally right, really.
Cool. A couple of questions. They think you answered probably some of them already about cost. So anyone that wants to read them, they're in the webinar chat. But what was the other one? Do you do branding, Laith?
No. No. Obviously, Shaz is the guy to go to, right? So Shaz did my branding. There's a few really good guys, and in your group, there's been a few people recommended, right? But
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Shaz is the go-to guy. Again, I'm sure he's equally busy, but in terms of the personal touch and getting working with what you've got, I think Shaz is one of the best that I've certainly worked with. So highly recommend Shaz Memon, and that's Digimax Dental. Cool. I don't know if we've got many more other questions coming through. I've got a couple more questions. And Laith, this is for you. How much should a 2-surgery practice cost me if you give me 3 ranges, so low, middle, top end?
So a 2-surgery practice, we tend to say it's going to be about 900 square feet, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're doing 900 square feet times by 90, because I'm terrible, the lowest is going to be about 81,000 for the build, and then you're going to have to think about your cost for your equipment. Okay. And when I say cost, it's always going to be plus VAT. I know people hate VAT, but it's not money that contractors keep. Okay. It's a tax that we have to pay. And people, for some reason, always quote excluding VAT. It's just a habit. I don't know why we do that. But yeah, 81,000 plus VAT plus your chairs. So if your cost is limited, then you're going to have to think about refurbished chairs. Okay. Yeah. I don't potentially recommend it. I think that if you're going to have your new equipment, just get it all new. Yeah. Don't have to worry about servicing unless you get really lucky. Unless you get really lucky and find some really good equipment that is not particularly expensive. If you're going to go all out, you're going to spend around about 120 grand, okay, plus VAT. Okay, so there's a difference in price there.
120 on the build and then everything else on top.
Yeah, that's going all out.
Well, this is really interesting because, I mean, those numbers certainly resonate with what I sort of was spending. I had the same dilemma. Do I, as I said, money was the big thing, right? And you think I'm going to ruin this. I'm going to put myself in financial difficulty forever. So you cut back. Couple of things, Facebook, social media. I found a dentist who was selling off a lot of their equipment. Speak to them, find out you might be able to pick up a few bits. I've got an old suction for sale that can be fixed, things like that. But again, same advice. If you're going to do something, do it properly. And some of the cheapest things I did were the biggest mistakes. I had a compressor blow up. I mean, can you imagine a new business and the compressor blows up? What are you going to do? So again, I've learned the hard way on things like that. My advice to people is work within your budget, but there are certain things you have to spend on and just do it properly. Cool. I think that was my question on that. I'm not sure about this one. There was a question about financial viability. I don't think that's really for this question, so we might have to cover that later. So a question from Ashwin. Do you send off the application as soon as the entire build is done, or can it be done during second fix due to time and processing? So I think that's for you, Rajiv.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, no, I think the application can be done as soon as you find your, as soon as you get D1 planning and you found your sort of dental build. The application process can take anything between 2 and sometimes 3 months. So it's always a good idea to get your application in whilst your build is being completed or being sort of processed. And it's about making sure that you kind of work with your dental builders, your service engineers to make sure that you provide CQC the timescales of your actual readiness of the location. That's important. But in terms of the answer to that question, no, you don't have to wait until the completion of the build. I would always get your application in the process of your build being done, really. Yeah.
Laith, I'm sort of jumping between everyone here. Can the planks, the flooring, the LVT? Can you use those in the surgery?
No.
That's the answer. So that's exactly what I thought. You can't weld them, can you?
Yeah, if you're looking for flooring for surgery, but you want to be a bit different, you just need to look at different brands. Okay, so have a look at Forbo. Forbo makes some really nice flooring. Okay, obviously everyone knows Altro. Altro is probably the highest quality you can get out there, and you can get wooden floor type of look. I showed you earlier that's wooden type of floor. That was Polyfloor. So there's a few different brands you can use, and if you've got any questions, you can always message me, and I'm happy to answer sort of questions.
Nice one. I've got a cheeky question for you, Laith.
Yeah.
Sure, we're allowed to answer this because of GDPR. Who's your favorite client and who's your worst client ever?
No. No, seriously. I've had, everyone, Sonia, for example, was an interesting one because...
I've got to say Sonia because she's on the group now.
Yeah. Because Sonia and me really clashed. It was really funny, but we get on. So we're friends. So everyone always thinks that we actually don't get on, but we do. We just for some reason just have a really heated discussions. Even in her practice, we actually argued a lot about her interior design. And when I'm talking about arguments, we'd argue a good hour about floor, colours of the walls. Eventually, she would actually listen to what I was saying, and she has to. She's probably one of the first to admit that she's happy she did.
Amazing. That's a great story, man. Thank you. Rajiv, I'm sure you probably got similar, but you're probably too polite to say. I just want to move on, guys. There are a few more questions, but there's something that's really, really important, which I think I'd like us to all touch on. We mentioned it earlier, Laith. There's the last 10 minutes of the webinar now. Any other questions that come in, I might email and send them separately. But I think, we're all here, and I appreciate everyone giving their time up. We've been told, obviously, we're going to open as of next week if we wish. I'm sure that has brought some anxiety to us as clinicians. It's definitely brought anxiety to the dental team. But really, I just want to talk about stress in dentistry. And, Laith, I think you'd be good to sort of jump in as well on this. But for all of us, the more successful, the more effective you are as a clinician, the higher the stress levels. The one thing I want to tell people is, look, if you're going to take over in a business, you've still got the pressures of the dentistry. As Laith alluded to, there's pressures in every industry. So we're not sort of special in that regard, but there is then the aspect of running the business. So part of it is like the CQC. You can't do it all on your own. And I think really it's really important that we take the time as clinicians to talk about stress in dentistry. Those of you might know I run a dental course called Smile Fast. It started for a very simple reason. Dentistry took me too long, and patients' expectations get higher and higher. And those two things added together, then you've got to make a profit on top of it, and you've got to run a business. It's not that difficult to become stressed in dentistry. So, Laith, you've done some amazing gestures in the past to sort of help the profession. Can you sort of share a bit more about your thoughts on stress? Yeah,
so one of the reasons why I did it is people on Facebook, for example, we're all very good at saying when things are going bad, okay? So I'm one of them, okay? I put some posts on when I'm frustrated about the CDO, when I'm frustrated about certain patients, or when I had complaints. And when you become addicted to Facebook, like many of us are now, okay? And because we use it as a resource, and we hear constant negativity of dentistry on a day-to-day basis, I think we are at danger of that becoming ingrained in thinking that dentistry is awful. I saw a post the other day where there was a dentist whose daughter's going to do dentistry in September, and the first comment that came up there was convince her to do a different career. And that was the first comment that I saw. And when you see these comments all the time, it has an influence, especially on the younger dentists, okay? So I've been qualified now 10 years, but the dentists that have been qualified 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 years get especially affected by that, because they really hear about, the good old days, okay? Good days of dentistry. Goodwill prices were lower. UDAs were a completely different thing. We didn't have this coronavirus disaster. This is unprecedented. So what I did is I decided to invite people to my practice to give them a different angle and say, look, dentistry can give you a very good career. It can give you a very stable income. It won't make you a millionaire, but you shouldn't chase a millionaire status either, okay? If you want to chase a millionaire status, you need to think about a different career. If you want a stable income, you want respect from your community, you want a job that can be 9 to 5 if you want to, you can be part-time if you want to, you can do other avenues, you can do different businesses, you can do dentistry part-time and start another business and still have enough income just to start that business and start to make it a bit more comfortable, but you can. So that's the reason why I started that, because I was just trying to introduce a bit of positivity, and it made a massive difference.
Man, brilliant answer, mate. So inspiring. And Rajiv, obviously, with the situation at the moment, we're all facing going back as of next week. Have you got any advice or any thoughts on what we should be looking at? How, what your feedback on the latest guidelines as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a good question, really, in terms of, I'm not a dentist myself, but I think it's been I'm fair to say it's been a difficult time for everyone in the profession. I think now we just need to work and adapt to new ways of working, which is quite fair. And I think practices and staff were eager to start work before the official announcement came over, because it was a bombshell, I think, 8th of June, an announcement from the CDO. And then I think the majority of our members that we're working with in the practices are now saying, well, actually, we're not prepared. And that's both mentally prepared for staff and also processes and procedures. So I think the FGDP guidance that came out, yes, it was an overwhelming document, but what we've been able to do is summarize it. And I think a good place to start for any practice, I think, if you're an owner, so media, so I'm sure you might be thinking about this, so, to have a practice team meeting with your staff, whether that's virtual or in the practice, and actually to go through the FGDP document, to summarize it, and look through the key risk assessments that you need to be able to do to make sure that you can at least prepare yourself to open and to do some procedures in the practice. So work through the patient journey, or create yourself a patient journey via the FGDP guidelines, and look at the 5 key areas. Pre-appointment, patient attendance, what you do during treatment, after treatment, and also the management and governance tasks. And actually, the GDP, the FGDP guidance basically states that you just need to be at basic requirements and follow the basic requirements. There are only 3 grading systems on there, and if you're a grade B in those risk assessments, then you are safe and effective in terms of making sure. But it's just preparing your teams really now in lieu of the actual guidance that have come out. And things are changing on a daily basis, and that's a difficult thing for you, isn't it, really? Because you don't know what information to believe at the moment. But the FGDP guidance for me was very clear, and that's what we've been using for our members with regards to relaying information. Just a starting point, really.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. One question specific to the FGDP guidance, Laith. I don't know, you probably read it as well, but did you read about the ventilation of windowless rooms? That's something that's causing a little bit of stress for many practices, particularly in the southeast in London, where they don't have that much space. What are your thoughts, and have you got any sort of ideas around that?
It's a really difficult one. I think no one really has got the answer to that. I think everyone's got a vague idea. Look, personally, would it stop me doing dentistry? No, it wouldn't.
Same.
Would I be looking at filtration systems? Yes, I would.
Yeah, same.
Are the studies strong enough about filtration systems? Not really. But what's the options? There isn't options. Even the case of air conditioning, where they said you can use air conditioning if you're not recirculating air. That's how air conditioning works. So that made me a bit more confused than actually windowless surgeries. So no, look, if it was me, I would be limiting the amount of patients in a windowless practice. I would be considering getting a filtration system, okay, just for peace of mind. And I would definitely increase the appointment times between aerosol procedures. And there's not a lot else you can do. Yeah. I think long-term, personally, that dentistry is going to go back to normal a lot quicker than we thought. If we look at where we were 8 weeks ago, as of today, we're a completely different position now, okay? And I think another 8 weeks is going to be, again, a completely different position to today. You know, in just what is it, 2 weeks from now, shops will open again. Yeah. It's just going to bring a little bit of normality. And as that happens, I think things will start to loosen. Touch wood, okay?
I don't think I can agree more, Laith. I think that's exactly my position. I've got one room that's not got a window. Again, from CQC, Rajiv, I wasn't told that I needed specific ventilation. I had an air conditioning unit. Luckily, my air conditioning unit does have the option of just pulling in fresh air. So that allows ventilation. But, you know, it wasn't actually one of the things in the guidelines. I would have imagined CQC would have picked up on ventilation, but it wasn't actually covered.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely covered in the HTML 105, and I think this is where when you get your sort of specific designs and your implementations on the builds, I'm sure Laith will agree, in terms of kind of the decon rooms and surgeries to make sure that they're planned effectively before you set them up. And I think today I got a lot of queries around surgery sinks. You know, do we have one of them? We have two. So it's about making sure that you implement that sort of detail within your plans.
Yeah.
Prior to the CQC attending. Yeah.
No, cool. I mean, we're coming to the end of today's presentation. I'd like to thank you both for your time. I mean, I've really enjoyed this. This is, I think, the future of dental education, actually. You know, as I said, I run my own course, and we used to get 40 or 50 delegates in, you know, for the courses. I think that'll come back, but I do think there's going to be an element of this kind of informal teaching style where you can maybe, you know, relate directly with the person that's presenting. As I say, I'd like to thank everyone who sort of attended the webinars. I'm going to talk with the rest of the team, with Laith and people, and see if this is something that we're going to roll out more and more in the future. We've all got really busy lives. As I said, my wife, I don't know why she's still with me at the moment, because she probably wants me to get out of the house, actually. But it does take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I hope it's been useful. I can say this with a hand on my heart. Both Laith and Rajiv are there to help. You know, yes, they're businessmen and they've got successful businesses, but that's why we joined the group, to give back to dentistry. What Laith was talking about is stress is real in dentistry. And if this group can just help one person reduce their stress level and improve their quality of life, then it's done everything that, you know, I'd ever hoped it would do. So yeah, I mean, just really to summarize, just say thank you to everybody who's been involved. I am going to keep the group limited. You know, we've had a lot of people asking to join the group outside. I don't know what your thoughts are, Laith, but I like the fact that it's a safe space for dentists. You know,
great place. I think it's such a unique area, because you literally get dentists talking about their experiences, and then in the same group you get contractors, people provide services, no one in a pushy way. I don't think I've ever seen anyone advertising it ever. No one's even put their details or website ever. It's literally been a case of, here's some advice, and if you want to, you know, and they can. I've had people PM me before, but I think it's a great place. I think you've done a really, really good job with that group.
Right, thanks, man. So yeah, as I said, I think we'll call it we'll call it a day now. I mean, I'm sure there are more questions, but thank you both for your time. I'd like to thank Andy Acton and FTA Finance and the whole FTA group, because I was sort of teetering with this idea for a long time, and Andy gave me a kick up the backside. I was like, this is the time. And also Andy and his, they've got a media team, so they produce all the videos for all the marketing. We've had over, I think if I do the numbers, about 400 dentists in total watching the webinar. So that's pretty awesome. And I think it's down to the marketing. I'd like to thank Anna for her amazing story and testimony. I think it's really good to see other clinicians as well. I don't know about you, Laith, but you probably see so many surgeries. But for me, I don't see everybody else's surgery. So for me, that was incredible to see her journey, and to actually set up 2 practices in 2 years. That, again, just shows what's possible. I'd like to thank Chelsea for her marketing advice. Again, you know, reach out to these guys and ask for advice. You know, I said I started this group because the first thing I found when I asked for help was, that's £1,000, please. I mean, when you're nervous, when you're scared, when you're anxious, you just want help. And if, as I said, all of the members of the group are here to help. Jeremy Howard also for his financial advice. Again, that's independent financial advice. Don't forget how important that is in the scheme of everything. And of course, my sidekick, Aaron, he's not here today, but it's been really good bouncing ideas off him. I'd also recommend anyone that's, thinking about this, get a partner, get a buddy, someone that you can pitch ideas off. And I'm fortunate Aaron lives around the corner, so we meet up for a beer from time to time and discuss it. So yeah, I think in summary, guys, it's been a hell of a 4 weeks. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Laith, thank you once again, mate. That was so inspiring, man. That was great. And finally, Rajiv, man, thank you so much for tying it all together. So I guess, guys, 8th of June, most of us will be back to drilling, but try and make sure your life isn't the same as it finished. Try and make sure that you implement the changes that we're talking about. Health is wealth. That's what they say, isn't it? So think about your health, your mental health. Dentistry isn't the be all and end all. I mean, look at that guy in the corner there. Laith, he's 33 and he's achieved 2 businesses. And he's still smiling, I'm sure. And he's got more hair than me as well.
Look at that, 45.
He's still got a full head of hair, which I don't understand. And dentistry isn't the only way. It's a great career. Take out what you need from it. If you need help, ask. And I'm sure this group will grow from strength to strength off the back of this. So I guess we can say goodbye to everyone. And maybe we'll do it again soon. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Just want to say on behalf of everyone else, thank you so much for holding these webinars. Okay, I've heard about these webinars, even ones I couldn't even meet because obviously of different meetings. But it's a credit to you, honestly, credit to you to bring this forward. The group you've done, the way you've been so open with information, it's been great. So good on you, honestly, really good.
That means a lot, man. All right, everyone, thank you so much, guys. Take it easy, and back to work.
Take care. Bye, bye, guys.
Everyone, bye now.